Welcome to the November 12th OpenZFS production user call. We have Eva, Andrew, Mark, Dan, Jan, Daniel, and myself, Michael, so far. And thank you everyone who helped make the OpenZFS User and Developer Summit such a fun event a few weeks ago. In the news, the paperwork's being pretty much wrapped up, and shirts for remote attendees have just arrived and are sitting on the table in the other room. And I was approached about doing an event in Boston in late April, such that you are welcome to watch this space. It would be maybe a more classic 2-day event, and I'll just keep that information coming as it lands. But again, thank you everyone. It was a lot of fun. The feedback's been great. The food was great. And any questions regarding the summit? Shirts to mail are here. And one thing at the very end of it, towards the end, knowing we had some people who couldn't attend, I added a remote participation ticket that for a certain amount of money, you could have access to the Zoom session, and I will send you a t-shirt. And yeah, Jan ping me with a t-shirt size. I'm more than happy to send you one. You were very helpful in the stream. So, Dan, you have a new article about your storage plan. What would you like to tell us?
I started running out of space on one Z pool, so I started looking at options of getting some more storage. And then I got that new storage and then decided, holy crap, I don't have enough. So then I started looking at moving things around. And someone then mentioned to me that you can get a bifurcated card which will hold 4 NVMEs. So that would give me an additional 4 terabyte NVMEs, which would sort of push me over the edge. That arrived and I installed it, and I realized I had to remove and relocate somewhere else from the two PCI slots 4 and 6 of my server, which allow for 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 bifurcation, which is what this card needs. But there were no free drive cages, so I had to remove two other things to put these two things in. And then I was hunting around trying to find out, will this host boot from NVMe? No, it won't. It doesn't. When it came out, NVMe didn't exist. And then I was going to play around with, well, maybe if it's on a PCIe slot, maybe it'll boot. And then someone told me about SATA DOM devices. And this motherboard has two SATA ports on it. And so I can insert a SATA drive directly into those ports. And that's what I'm going to boot from. So
let him finish.
So the interesting bit of that is the SATA drives are 128 gig, and the SSDs I'm booting from are larger. I don't know the exact size. So then I was wondering, okay, I know how to do this. I'll just create a new Z pool and replicate it over, because ZFS replace the drive you specify has to be the same size or larger than the one it's replacing. And then someone pointed out that sorry, I said ZFS replaces, Z pool replace. Someone else pointed out the ZFS add, or is it insert, doesn't need to be a bigger drive. It can be a smaller drive. So it just makes the adjustments and adds the device in, and it works. And so these things are destined to arrive on Friday. The weekend is busy with family birthdays. So next week, I'm going to start playing around with that and see how it goes. It might work. It just might work. Now, Jan, yes, it has two slots which will support 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 bifurcation. It will. I know it will because I'm using this card with four NVMe devices in it, and they're all showing up in the D message output.
That's nice. Um, the other thing is that because NVMe SSDs are effectively PCI Express devices, they can bring their own option ROMs, but not all vendors choose to include that functionality because these
And
days it's normally no longer needed.
well, the problem is this is a Dell R730, which is probably at least 5 to 10 years old, I would guess. I
Mhm.
don't know when
Not a
they
pro
came out. So
So
I'm not
if
sure that it supports booting from the NVMe.
it doesn't have to be NVMe aware if the NVMe drive brings its own boot support in the form of an option ROM,
Mhm.
just like the
I'm going,
SCSI card could.
yeah, I'm going to try configuring it and see if I can boot from an NVMe mounted in a PCIe slot because I've been using SSDs like that for years and is very convenient. It frees up your drive cages for real hot swap stuff. But
Yeah, this is sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, what Jan's talking about is the same way you would get a SCSI card or a RAID card or some of the NICs bringing their own
Yep.
option ROMs. Since NVMe is essentially the same as um, um, PCIe, it can have an option ROM. That said, I don't think many SSDs, if any, do that.
So I've seen Samsung do it and Micron do it.
Yep.
Uh,
Well,
and sometimes
the consensus in the hardware forums is that a Dell R730 cannot boot from NVMe. I'm
it
willing to
cannot
test.
do so on its own because
Well,
the firmware does not know how to talk to an NVMe drive, but it knows how to enumerate PCI devices and load their option ROMs. So if your SSD brings NVMe boot support in the form of an option ROM, it doesn't matter that the BIOS or UEFI firmware doesn't know about NVMe.
yep. So, how do you know an NVMe supports that?
You
A
try
lot of
it.
trial and error.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you
The thing
go.
is,
We'll start with the Micron
oftentimes you have
ones.
to.
They're expensive, but they work. They're for the boss cards and they do some magic. Go ahead.
I've
Um,
I've bought I've already bought them and they're Samsung devices,
Okay.
Samsung 990 Pros, I think.
the thing to do is test both. Your server should be new enough that it has UEFI, but still includes BIOS boot support because it's kind of the vintage you're describing, if I understood you correctly. So maybe try toggling the option ROMs between legacy and EFI mode
The
to
legacy
see.
ROM where in
So,
the BIOS for
so
the
if you
server
go into the BIOS screen, there
on
should be in this generation a setting to kind of select between BIOS boot. So CSM is the UEFI in BIOS mode,
Or legacy,
which is
whatever they
probably
call
the
it.
yeah the compatibility subsystem or something. CSM. So if you play around with that and then try UEFI boot versus legacy boot or dual, and then per slot or device in a PCI slot, you should be able to toggle under something like
okay.
Northbridge PCIe between the option modes of disabled, legacy, and EFI mode.
Okay, I'll have a
So
look at
that's
that.
worth trying. I can't promise
Taken
success.
I've taken I only work Monday and Tuesday next week, and then I'm off until December 1st. So I have a bit of time
Mm.
to play on this.
And if you have already bought the SATA DOMs, they will definitely work.
Yeah, I bought them. They arrived Friday. I got that recommendation from another user who's using a Dell R730 XD, and they boot from a 128
Yeah.
gig is plenty of space for my
The naughty
OSD
things you
drive.
could also do is put in a USB thumb drive on the mainboard if you have the socket, or if you have the option on your server, use the vFlash support.
There are lots of USB uh, ports, front and rear, on this server, but I'd rather use the SATA DOMs.
Yeah, but this vintage of Dell servers has an optional feature called vFlash, where the BMC will expose its SD card.
Oh,
Uh,
is that what you Yeah.
the front use like SD card slot on the front. It's kind of branded, but it's Dell
Hmm.
branded bullshit. But it's basically an SD card slot in the front. And if you have that feature, the nice thing about it is you can write to it through the IPMI web interface and APIs to upload an image. And the images can be exposed read only and read write, if I remember correctly.
And it's
And
persistent?
all you need, what?
It's persistent?
Yes,
Oh, great. Okay.
it's where you can put your install media. Like you
Right.
upload your FreeBSD memstick image
Of
to
course,
that,
but
and then
as
you
long as it
can
doesn't
just
get dumped
turn
after
it on.
reboot or
And
something.
if you expose it, it's there, it's persistent, it's in on the flash. And the only thing you need to have this work is you have to have your slash boot there. So your kernel, which is not written to during normal operations. So the thing you can do is you make uh, like you would have before Jelly had support was in the FreeBSD bootloader. You make slash boot its own file system, and then you have a symlink in your real file system to the uh, pool, which contains only the slash boot directory. Because there are basically only writes to that when you do a system upgrade
Cool.
or patch. You don't have to worry about wear leveling and write endurance because you only have writes to it every few weeks or months.
Yeah. The it sounds like a great option, but it sounds like too fiddly for what I want to do.
Sure.
It just does.
If you
It,
want more
it's not,
fiddly, you might have a slim DVD bay, and they have a really tiny proprietary SATA connector, and you can find power for that and put SATA to it
And
and have a bay in a drive bay in front. Just saying.
yeah, those exist for laptops, those
yeah.
adapters.
I,
Yep.
I
They
do
work
have a
great.
CD. I do have a CD drive in this host, which will be rendered useless because I'm taking the SATA port for the SATA DOM.
Yeah. But again, if you already bought the DOMs, what are we talking about? It's just
Sure.
Yeah,
the
they were
DOMs will work. They're
about
port powered.
$80 for the pair delivered.
Nice, and I sincerely hope they have the right power connector because they have countless options with virtually no documentation of what's the different tiny little
Yeah,
versions are called, and good luck with
we'll
that.
see. Maybe I'm burning up my house. I do have a
Not
couple of
Well,
burning, just
some
spares
of
I
them
can try
not
them
fit.
are
on.
powered
Cool.
through the SATA data connector to an additional 5
No,
port pin.
it's through a connector on the main board.
Others
If,
require a little extra
Yeah.
power cable.
Yeah, I think Supermicro
yep,
tries the data one. But anyway, cool. I trust you will blog prolifically about this as you go.
yep, I
I've
Cool.
will.
even seen one with a data connector on one side and SATA power on the other.
No boy. Yep. Ah,
Yeah.
hardware. It's been so nice to take a break from it. Cool. Um,
So that's it for me.
love it. At least two of you were at the summit. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yes.
What was your favorite part?
Me giving a talk and being charming and only fumbling for the first 15 minutes because I had technical difficulties.
Ah,
No,
you
I
did
I
great.
liked I mean I don't know. I got to first of all, I got to eat all of Stu's food and but more importantly, I got to meet like half of this call. I mean, actually the other half of the call that I haven't met in person, but also some, so many eggheads, like supercomputer guys, some more Clara people who I haven't met yet. The TrueNAS folks, all the people trying to get jobs in a few people trying to get jobs in doing more ZFS, myself included. It was just grand. It was so fun, and informative, and yeah.
Cool. Glad you enjoyed it. Eva, so sorry you couldn't make it. And Andrew, you on? Sounded like Mark with your name bouncing. Muted. Cool. So from the event, I've been poking at the ZFS Test Suite. Might have either a separate hackathon or something, but I've got a document where I've been tracking everything I've learned. Some of it's purely cosmetic. Some of it is like utilities perhaps wanting their behavior to change slightly, and some core dumping, which Rob pointed out. So we'll get to that when the time comes.
So
Yes, Jan.
from what little code I've read of the test suite, it looks to me like the test suite is really it's showing its age in that it was written with the assumption that the test suite does not control a hypervisor.
Yes,
A
and
lot of
it,
the
yep.
problems with the complexity of writing new tests so that you, for example, have to restore the system to its previous state and so on, are a consequence of that it tries to run multiple tests on the same kernel, especially even worse, not even on the same kernel, on the development machine effectively.
Hmm.
So it cannot destroy the system and so on. It must not leave too much of a mess.
Yet it does.
Uh, of course it does. But if we had, for example, Beehive support built in, so then you could take advantage of certain things, like, for example, you could make the test directory available via 9pfs.
Hmm.
You could snapshot the volumes you're running your tests on before and then roll back, or even
Hmm.
create a clone before and then run the test on the clone so that you could efficiently keep the failed test artifacts around.
Yep.
What would be nice and which would make it even faster if Beehive, okay, Beehive has suspend and resume, so I guess you could boot the system and then into a set reconfigured state, then kind of snapshot the guest as in suspend it and then resume it multiple times. If we optimize the boot of the operating system, that may not be an optimization because if you suspend the system, you actually have to save all the state, whereas it may be faster to not read the state in, but just set it up. Yeah,
Cool.
you could also more easily run multiple tests concurrently to get the runtime down. So you create several smallish virtual machines and let them run in parallel. And you could be sure that different tests running in different virtual machines could not easily interfere with each other than timing. So sure, if you're doing a bunch of performance regression tests, you should be careful about noisy neighbors. But
Sure.
if you're doing kind of correctness tests, where time is not one of the results you're monitoring much, then yeah.
And naturally, send
Even,
receive between different OSs is sure easy with virtual machines, and performance is not the question.
yeah, send and receive between different versions even.
Hmm. You're
Like,
getting it.
can can we send and receive these things between this operating systems or this ZFS versions?
Sir.
Effectively requires virtual machines.
Yes, sir. So yeah, it went from the Solaris test suite to the ZFS on Linux test suite to the GitHub test suite, and everything else is sort of inconsistently supported, and hopefully people will be interested in tightening that up. But I very much can picture a Beehive-based test regime that, for those of us without a nifty GitHub runner credit bucket, I'm excited. So any and all help is appreciated. And no, you can't use the standard gmake and stuff on FreeBSD with the in-base version, contrib version of OpenZFS. I tried that, and I've been documenting it in this document. I'll drop it in chat for those who celebrate. So there is that. Anyway, and I just spun up Beehive with the OmniOS from what, this morning? 15156 was it? So that booted just fine. And I sure don't know if the test suite runs on a Lumos at this point. It's from there, but does it still run there? I cannot say. So I might have a Lumos questions. Anywho, what time is it? Oh, half after. So Rob, who might drop in, still might be a bit hopping on his trams and trolleys. Other news, questions, ideas. Who's deploying new stuff? Who's planning new systems? What you got?
I've got some good Zelta refactors in the
Ooh,
works.
okay.
Yeah, nothing too exciting in terms of features. I have some old issues to iron out. Some defaults that I'm very confident that I have in my wiki that are not defaults in the current GitHub version, or the current ports version. So just some housekeeping there,
Sure.
and I'm improving the sort of protocol communication between the replication systems. Like Zelta Match is sort of a standalone thing that identifies the replication relationship between two data sets, which I find to be very handy.
It's
But the
extremely handy.
replication, yeah, the replication tool uses that. So
Ah,
it's sort of kludgy. It's sort of a kludgy communication with command line options, bouncing around through shell to make it portable and POSIX friendly. But I'm cleaning that up and creating protocols for communicating a little more cleanly between the different tools, um, so that I can also add features a lot faster.
does your documentation mention ZFS allow and the allowed properties to allow Zelta usage by an unprivileged user?
Yeah,
It
if you
does.
check out, if you go to zelta.space and
Oh, yeah.
then you can click on the wiki, there's a wiki.js. It's all written in Markdown and it's pretty clean and it
Oh,
shows you lots of different things that you can do for both backup policies and failover policies, failover replication jobs, I mean. So it's pretty good. It probably needs a little TLC. It's
but it does. Well, let's go there, and I'll say why. But does it indeed mention the whole? Was it under doc?
oh, it definitely does.
Okay,
There's a
because
doc about allow for sure. I
okay, because
mean,
allow is
those.
just like the greatest thing ever. From all those with web servers and root access on the web server and wanting to meaningfully back it up,
Oh
the ability
no.
for an unprivileged user. Oh my gosh, boom.
All right.
I am
So
not
I
allowed.
absolutely wrote this documentation. This documentation definitely exists. It might be there might be abbreviated versions at the top. I'll get
Okay.
that. I'll get that sorted. I am sure I had this ready for the for the for BSDCAM last year. That
No
was in
worries.
May.
Well,
So
here's a motivator because, dear users, if you haven't seen that ZFS allow can allow an unprivileged user to do quite a few things like replication, it is so your friend. And of course, maybe one user can only snapshot but not replicate, and the other one can replicate but not snap, or possibly one can destroy but not do the other steps. It is just awesome. Just saying. So go ahead and fix that.
yeah, I
Uh,
wrote all that stuff. All
You wrote it.
right.
Well,
So
I'm sure it's on a laptop somewhere, sitting in a thing, and yeah. That
Yeah,
is just, yeah.
so the next major feature for Zelta will be Zelta Bastion. Right now you have to have Zelta on either the source or target machine, but
Right.
there and I talked about this in my talk at the OpenZFS Summit, but why would you need to install it at all? It should be a totally locked down machine that's actually orchestrating the backup jobs. So you can do that with just SSH jumps and um, and then the backup server doesn't need direct access to the primary at all. I mean, it
Um,
needs a direct network connection, but no direct. It does not need to have the key on it for replication jobs.
I swear I tried two remote host names like over SSH, but didn't dare hit enter. But it seemed to run match
It
perhaps, but I don't know if
it
it'll
it does
replicate.
well. No, it does. There is an initiator button, or you know what? I think it will attempt to run Zelta on the remote host.
Okay.
So if it does, but that's the point is that I don't want to have Zelta
Oh, totally. I get it.
on one of the two machines. Because like, what if we need to recover from, I don't know, what's the oldest CFS thing you can buy? Like a TrueNAS 9 box?
Um, Sure.
Yeah.
But no, I hear you. And no, it could be slow, but the fact that it's just SSH and send and it just does a whole bunch of housekeeping for you using standard Unix utilities is just delightful. Yes, Jan, what you got?
so there is one thing which would be, in my opinion, a major improvement for a medium amount of work, and that is to make a boot environment enable FreeBSD installation backupable in a way that you can restore it as a working system without having to manually set the mount points again and so on. So normally you would just not replicate the mount point property, but it would be nice if Zelta was able to preserve that dangerous mount point in a user property under what something like space.zelta colon mount point.
Yeah.
So the properties you refuse would be embedded into the user property namespace so that you have them and that Delta is able with a flag to restore those.
Yeah. I have some notes about that. I think that's a good idea. There's also
Then
yeah, I
uh,
also want to do a Zelta command that also replicates properties to between two replica sets. So if the properties change, Zelta isn't in the habit of changing the properties every time it replicates because that could get
Ah,
hairy. So yeah, so
um,
a property replicator and some other things are definitely in the work, or that could just be a flag, I guess.
and this would then be the precursor, if this was possible, to having your a Zelta enabled recovery medium which you
Mhm.
would put into a system. I mean, if you do it as a push replication, that already kind of works, right? You boot the live system, you do kind of the installation, you write everything but the bootloader, and then you have start the SSH server and do a replication onto the target system or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but having a little, hey, I want to kind of think of it as a text-based version of Apple's time machine recovery, where
Yeah,
you can have a FreeBSD in my system, you like a rescue USB stick you put in somewhere, and then it can pull the backups.
yeah, that
That
would be
would
very
be
nice.
nice. So a fast kind of disaster recover medium.
Yeah, that's great. I like
and
that.
I suppose booting to the latest FreeBSD installer and simply getting the latest boot blocks and pool config and then slamming your own personal system on top of it would be kind of nice to go from completely generic to absolutely personalized in, minutes. Would be nice.
Depends on how much data you have.
Of course. Well, I don't think anything could be slower than Apple's restoration procedures in my
Oh,
experiences.
It seems to be getting
it,
better, but yeah,
Oh,
it's
really?
still bad.
Okay, it's like,
Yeah,
it
I had to
depends on your
run
backup
one. I had
medium.
to run
If you
one the
use
other day.
a So Apple is Time Machine performance is atrocious on spinning disks because recent macOS versions insist on using AppFS for everything.
right.
And AppFS, the Apple file system, is absolutely hostile to spinning disks because it has none of the traditional optimizations file systems do to keep metadata separate from the actual data and minimize seeks. It assumes that everyone always uses SSDs.
It's
And
so
especially
sad
for
that
Time
Apple
Machine,
didn't use ZFS instead.
And they still have
yeah,
remnants of it. You still see it like show
Yeah,
up here and there in the like disk utility. I'm like, oh, please, come on. Really? Really?
yeah, I once booted that macOS 10.4 beta with native ZFS support.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, it wasn't fun to use on a Power Mac G4 at the time because ZFS is both CPU and memory heavy.
Yeah.
Especially old ZFS versions are memory hogs who do not play nice with 1 or 2 gigs of memory.
Not
Modern
wrong.
ZFS would actually work better.
Hmm.
Then I think they
Interesting.
were at like ZFS 9 or something. V9. It was a really ancient ZFS version. It was up to date at the time they're doing the work, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yep.
Thank Oracle.
Yep. That was the explanation. Mark, do you have any topics that are ZFS related?
No, I do not.
Are you finding
I
this useful?
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's all we hope for. Um,
Oh, and Daniel, but the zelta command isn't really that clever about finding out if it is allowed to mount. So if you have ZFS allows that, and then okay, it will still yell at you. And I
you're
think
not
it even
wrong.
aborts the replication if you didn't set the user mount property in sysctl and so on.
I thought
Uh,
I hide that unless you do is dash V. I thought I actually had a specific thing to
mhm.
hide mounts. Though that
And especially,
maybe that didn't get into
uh,
ports. But yeah, it's annoying because I do use
dash u.
dash U. I do, and it doesn't matter. It still is going to say it.
But yeah, what I would like
Um,
to see is a mode of replication where it saves the original can mount property and sets can mount to no auto or off on the
okay,
backup destination, because the backup system is normally not expected to mess within the data sets. You're not supposed to mount them writable and do stuff to them, even accidentally.
right.
Um, yeah, of course, receiving future changes on top would then work and would undo that to a degree,
Yep.
so that the
Well,
snapshots would still be intact.
I do set read only, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
You can mount and replicate on top. It's
yeah.
just I just
Um,
the work. My suggested workflow is use Zelta clone and then just use it that way because it takes exactly one extra line and then there's no interference with your backup protocol whatsoever.
Hmm.
yeah, okay. So far, I've only played around with Zelda Backup.
Icing on the cake. Love it. Uh, Jan, a C question for you. If you happen to be on a FreeBSD system, dash I slash search, no, dash I slash. Um, I've been trying to build the utilities, many of which build just fine with like, cc file.c, run a.out, but some of them bark on dependencies like libshare. And I thought, oh, I just slam it in there with dash I and have a nice day. But nope, it complains that I'm holding it wrong. So you or any C hacker like yourself who has any insights, I certainly appreciate those. And here's what happens if you try, for example, ccb_tree underscore test.c, fatal error, sys avl-h missing. So I don't know if one make file could just handle all of them. They're like 40 utilities. But that's
Um,
above my pay grade, and I don't even get paid.
so I think it's some Solaris shared library building stuff.
That could be. That could easily be. So I don't know if these are like point at one file or massive amounts of automake pre-preparation stuff.
There is no
Uh,
automake here. I think
uh,
what the issue is that your include path is not complete. So that you
ah,
so with sys.avl.h, I'm assuming you're testing on FreeBSD, right?
yes, I just jumped
Uh,
into the contrib ouch, the
yeah,
import
you're
of
not
OpenZFS
supposed
and
to
I thought,
build from
oh,
that directory, I
I
assume.
know. I'm not, there are a lot of things I'm not supposed to do, but that doesn't mean they'll
But
stop me from trying them.
the issue is that you have to invoke the compiler in just the right way to poison your C environment with all the Solaris
Ah,
emulation stuff. This is kind of the issue why building against the ZFS libraries on non-Elamos is such a problem.
yep. Okay.
So it's a case of you holding it wrong, I
Oh,
think.
definitely. That's my middle name.
So you need a few more.
Solaris C.
Oh, and dash I doesn't take directories, not um,
Oh, that's good to know. Ooh.
it always has. It's add
Th
to the list of include directories with compiler searches when you do
ah.
an hash include pointy.
Well, I better SSH over to machine and try it. Maybe it's as simple as that. Okay, sweet. Yeah, my CS education was limited.
These are
Cool.
more
Thank.
operational questions than theoretical education.
Hmm. Cool. Let's see. CD slash u. Don't ask me how I know this. User source sys contrib OpenZFS ZFS Test Suite uh, tests ZFS Test Suite. The heck was that? Cool. Anyway, so other thoughts, fun ideas, questions. Where the heck?
Well, I have
Test.
one of my developers wants to take a stab at the or get at least get involved in the user space project.
Oh yes,
Um,
do tell. That came up at the summit, and that's one where it's like again way above my pay grade. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just like the portability and all that stuff would just be so exciting. My understanding is we need a daemon to deal with the Z process and some other things, and then a fuse connector. Now we have somebody wrote both of those things. So
Um,
so
funny
what's
no,
that.
we
Do
the
tell.
don't, I think.
Well, what are you referring to, Daniel?
There's the C
um,
store, I think.
what?
C store?
Oh, is that what I'm thinking about? Hold on a second. I
Okay.
have
They kind of
notes.
forked CFS and turned it into a user space storage engine.
Oh, okay.
But the issue is they diverged a bit far now to make it easy to import that stuff. And I don't think we need the ZED daemon. That
Hmm.
that's kind of the last little thing. What we need is the ability to run ZFS in a user space process where you have kind of to provide the operating system port. So it would be a new platform, just like Linux or FreeBSD, maybe call it POSIX or whatever. Um,
Need
and
Cloud ABI? Oh, sorry.
um, I know you're joking, but it would be funny to, but
You're
sadly,
welcome.
Cloud ABI is dead.
I know.
Um, no, what would be nice is if it was a good citizen in the user space process and would just run as background threads. So it spawns its own threads as needed without a, and you could actually then not just write the Fuse server as a we have ZFS at home version of not having to build a kernel module, so that maybe you can use ZFS formatted disk on a random Linux distribution where the kernel module is not available for your distro kernel or whatever. But also you could make ZFS a storage engine for something like a database, where or an object storage daemon. So
Mm-hmm.
then ZFS is the or something like Samba could have ZFS built in as a VFS module,
Goodness.
just like they have Ceph or NFS support or something like that. They could also have ZFS VFS, even if it would now get a bit confusing. Um, where you just open a bunch of partitions and suddenly Samba supports all the CFS niceties of efficient snapshotting, copy and write semantics, extended attributes, and so on um, every platform.
Yeah, Brian was like, "Oh, we've been asking for this for a long time. Let's go take a look." And oh, right, that was me. It's like, yeah. So I'll put that there. Thank you for fixing the O. There was a comment along the lines of, well, Z-test or some of the test suite kind of sort of is already user space
Ish.
ZFS-ish. So what does it do and what doesn't it do? Whichever
I think it's
definition of
very
it
limited
you
in
have.
the APIs you
Use
can call
ZFS.
from
Oh, C okay.
user space. Kind of yes, C store is the one I thought of.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. C store. Aha. Oh, with a lot of camel case. Hold on. Big S, no E. Cool. And was there also a Pew ZFS, mini ZFS, something, something, micro ZFS? Oh, hello, C store. 4 years ago. 11 years ago. Hello. Yeah, nothing's changed since then. Oh, look at that. A data. Oh, is that another one? Maybe copy. Yes. Use ZFS. So I didn't see a link explicitly to that. C store
I think it
or
was
actually,
C store was also one of the potential backends for the OpenEBS project, but I don't know if that went anywhere.
interesting. UZFS. Great. So where's the link to that? Yeah, so total hackathon territory here, just to figure out where we stand. Matt had some questions. Da, 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 da. libc store. OpenEBS. Okay. Let's grab that bad boy. As in BS block storage. EBS, maybe. Take a look what you got. Format that a little bit. I like your notion of greatest hits. Thank you, Daniel. Um, not that. Not that. Elastic block storage was EBS or Excruciating BS. libc store. CAS, another 3 letters to worry about. OpenEBS.io, 2 years ago. Not so bad. Okay, what you got? I know we shouldn't judge code based on age, but you know. Okay. It has a very happy donkey or mule or learn something every day. Copy. Has anyone tinkered with any of these, or have you simply collected exciting URLs?
I haven't used it because I'm not using Kubernetes. I'm doing my own stuff with jails, as you probably know.
But what about the Fuse goodies and C-store and more C-store and story C? Oof, let's see.
I'm trying to get caught up, but I don't know C or anything I would need to be particularly effective. So I'm getting that an
Well, you
old
mentioned your team
beard.
members might be interested. I'm sorry to
Exactly.
write you
Yeah.
there. Let's tell me more.
So yeah. So so Richard, a beardless graybeard, is going to take a shot on the well, at least partially on the company dime. I hope he
Cool.
gets excited about it, and yeah, because he wants to do more with with Zelta and getting Zelta out there. And I said, well, it would probably help to be more active in the community. And here's one ZFS feature that I think is needed more than a lot of them because if the barrier to entry just gets that much lower for Linux users especially, I
Right.
think that could be a big boost because I mean it sounds like CDDL is not going to happen, and we're not going to write our way out of CDDL problems. That's anytime soon.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like if we could have it on Mac more easily, and I
I've
don't
used
know.
it for a decade on Mac. What do you mean? I think it's great. But suddenly you could do things like suddenly Zelta sprouts ZFS and your completely non-ZFS system is suddenly speaking it like magic. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be
Craziness.
interesting, and that would be necessary to. So I talked in my talk. I mentioned there could be bugs in ZFS, so there will never be a time that somebody like FSX, like Amazon, will never let you replicate ZFS streams into them because because ZFS is a kernel thing, and if you could crash a system or destroy a pool, then nobody's ever going to provide. I mean, people do provide ZFS replication services,
Hmm.
but there's like a level of trust that you can't have. If you can have ZFS and then snapshot a user space ZFS on that, then you can create the perfect backup. You can create a backup that even if the pool gets destroyed, you have a point in time way to recover it, even if the software can't be trusted. So it's just yeah. So I don't know. I think user space could be useful for a million different reasons, and I feel like everybody wants user space for a different reason.
For a different
I
reason,
care
which is
about
great. Exactly. Very cool.
there's so many things.
I would say that it's already possible if you use a hypervisor
Oh,
as
I
you
do.
as you
Yeah,
would.
a hundred,
I mean,
a
Amazon
hundred
is
percent.
also selling you function as a service based on top of hypervisors. So there is no reason why they, for example, if they wanted to provide a ZFS API, why they couldn't use a hypervisor to boot Linux or FreeBSD or Lumos,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
use that. That
Also,
has more overhead.
welcome, welcome to what the microkernel guys have been saying for decades.
Good point.
Oh, about security. Yeah,
Running everything
Uh,
at user mode.
yeah.
Hmm.
NetBSD has the rump support where you can kind of do microkernel-like things with NetBSD. Um, but there are also good reasons why microkernels have failed the real-world test for performance reasons.
Yeah, that's
At
bunk.
least, at least the common ones which were tried in the 80s. So Mark and Hurt and so on. Sure, in theory, something like a 4-based system can be fast, but then it doesn't look like uh, your normal Unix system. So people have used microkernels like L4sec as a kind of hypervisor to run Linux on top as a single server kind of system, as a single server microkernel um, for security or for certain embedded devices where you want to have kind of a real-time kernel and a Linux kernel, and you don't have a lot of CPU cores with hardware virtualization support to do it. So you put a microkernel in between. This has been done in the past.
Save it for the Tenenbaum talk. Call, rather.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I
It's
know.
definitely a
Okay.
topic.
Other cool uses of user space, ZFS, and companies with massive amounts of money to help make that happen. Ooh, did I say that out loud? Um, Funny, not even massive amounts. And that would be funny if Rob rolled in a few minutes and has his own use cases and thoughts. So, um, is Linux supporting any significantly meaningful file systems through Fuse that are only available through Fuse? So there is no comparison.
Um, for Linux, there's a certain overlay of F-spine features,
Hmm.
which are sometimes used for running containers. I think the most feature complete NTFS implementation is an NFS server, is a Fuse
Yep,
server.
yep. Cool.
Um, I know that Samba provides a Fuse server, which may be required for certain SMB features.
Samba has a Fuse server, really? Okay.
If you
Yeah, that's what I
Goodness.
use mostly for mounting.
That's how you use it on FreeBSD too, because SMBv1 is
Yeah.
horrible and shouldn't be used for anything outside of some vintage computing festival.
Fair enough.
But license.
Yep. Yep, there's that. Hmm.
I heard some rumors about an SMB client which some commercial vendor wanted to contribute.
Enterprise Working Group call? Hem that?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Cool. Welcome,
Didn't go
Albina. I
anywhere.
hope I pronounced that correctly. We've been starting a bit early, no worries there. You have zero obligation to dive in, but you're also very much welcome to dive in. And there's Stu. Gang's all here. Albina, Stu. And heck, we might even have Rob in a minute. Let's have a second call. Love it. Welcome, Stu.
Greetings.
We
Uh,
started an hour early.
yep. And remarkably, we had an hour worth of things to talk about. Stu, as a essential part of the summit and highly perhaps biased uh, observer of it, how did you enjoy the summit?
I filled out this questionnaire.
Ah, Stu, great. I will quote you on that. I filled out the questionnaire, the survey.
There
I
was
did
Good.
as well.
We got 11 of them. Is that right? Am I right?
11 so far, yeah. I'll send out a reminder to get a few more of those.
Oh,
But
nice.
people have been very positive. It's so weird.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's like the discussions we've had since about, better timings to get actual hackathon event type things happening,
Hmm.
at least collaboratively, um, can be optimized a bit more, but it depends on who shows up.
Yes, and to that point, I've been approached about a Boston event in late April, such that there could be an east-west cadence, or anytime someone threatens with a small budget, I am more than happy to spin up a Portland area event, a bit like the one we had, smaller size, more hardware, and let's rock and roll. So there's that. Um, oh, there he is. Welcome, Rob. Out of pure stubbornness on the time changes and such, we've been talking for an hour, but I've also been dreaming of your arrival.
That sounds vaguely creepy.
Yeah, it's all
No,
right.
no. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad today.
Excellent. Uh, I might need another address from you for a shirt and tote because reasons. Those all arrived today, all the extras. We talked about Dan's storage plan. We talked about Daniel's Zelta plans. And we then dove into user space ZFS. So I am curious if that's something you've poked at or you've only heard from the sidelines or otherwise. We went through
Oh,
C-store and perhaps another C-store and OpenEBS and 15-year-old discussions of ZFS views and all sorts of cool things. Anyway, uh,
anyway, yes. No, that is GFS user space is like my passion project.
oh,
Just landed a huge chunk towards it. Nothing you can see, just a whole lot of internal refactoring to help support it. Just landed that this morning. So, yeah.
okay. Oh,
Well, that's
so
really
what's the
exciting news.
nature of that? Yeah, and I support that statement. And what's the nature of that refactoring? Is it the fact that, oh, we're still looking at spinning disks and are thinking about Rust and this is a whole different angle on it,
On
or
No, no,
OS
that the
specifics?
uh mostly it's the existing user space support. So the SPL, which is basically the platform abstraction for ZFS. So there is a big Linux SPL, there is a much smaller FreeBSD SPL, um, and there is portions of it for user space for like, making P3 mutexes look like Solaris kernel mutexes, for example. Um, and those have already existed for a long time for tools like ZDB and Ztest and those sort of things, but we've only got just enough bits to support that. So the refactoring I've been doing is working towards basically making user space as like a proper third platform for, the port of ZFS to POSIX. And so it's a step in that direction because what I want to be able to do, Fuse is just one thing that I want to be able to do. I've talked
Hmm.
about this in other places.
Sure.
But basically, I want there to be, what you'd expect, a daemon program that has ZFS embedded in it and manages your disks directly and uses ZFS commands or whatever. And then on top of that, yeah, there's Fuse file systems, or maybe there's an NFS server, or maybe there's a VirtIO FS server or a 9P server for your VMs or something on the network. Or maybe there's nothing at the top. Anyway, because you're doing something different with it. Maybe it's just a snapshot manager and receiver. Maybe it's a ZFS powered backup uh, uh, target that you never need to mounting. It's just
Yep.
there and it can receive ZFS streams and it can store them locally. but it'll still be able to do scrubs and whatever. Maybe so basically I want that. I don't want to think of it as let's make ZFS work with Fuse. I want to make this, let's build a ZFS core that can be used to build other kinds of ZFS things that don't just live in the kernel. Now, Fuse is probably like the one that you talk about to get funding or interest or whatever, because people think that way. But also, it's also the least interesting for me because, like, okay, for other platforms maybe, but like we already have ZFS file systems, so like,
we
but I want to show people something different.
Jan, you had a few things?
Yes. I think the way you get funding is not with hey, we have ZFS Fuse, or we want ZFS Fuse, but ZFS as a storage backend for stuff which has to be in user space. So that you give it block device-like things, and you have all the ZFS redundancy and feature sets for volume management and RAID in user space. This would be a killer feature for an object store or for some kind of network appliance where you want to run it in a Docker container, for example. So everything which has to go in a unprivileged container is implicitly restricted to user space, POSIX API. What I wanted to ask you up is, do you know if ZFS has any parts where it is not easily portable to user space? For example, does it require spin locks, which don't really work in user space without thread pinning and so on?
No. Well, on that specific one, no. There is a couple of places we use spin blocks in the SPL code, like mostly like the task scheduler and things like that. But yeah, no. And
so there are no programming styles which are portable to user space.
No. You got to remember, we already have the ZFS core there. Whenever you run ZDB, you are running user space ZFS. So,
but it's an incomplete one.
Well, it's not an incomplete core. Whenever you run ztest, it's incomplete in that it doesn't have a file system layer on top, or it doesn't have a control plane. But those are around the edges. It's like all you need is something that calls the functions and it does the job. So it's important to remember, like, it is mostly there, but I want to make it better to work with and also fill out the pieces. The things that are missing that may be difficult are things like access controls. You know, like what does, and maybe they just get stubbed out, but like what does ZFS allow mean when you are running as a single unprivileged user process that has full access to the underlying disk? Like, no, seriously, like what does it mean? Like who else?
The application has to register a callback.
No. What does it mean conceptually? Like who are the other actors here? ZFS allowing is designed fundamentally for other Unix users to be able to perform certain operations. When there is no concept of other Unix users, what does that mean?
Well, the application could still have a concept of users.
Yes, but it may not. So that's what I'm saying. What those are the things that need to be built out. What does the interface for that functionality look like once you put it in user space? And it may simply be that the calling application can register, you know, a particular API, but it doesn't mean developing those APIs and that sort of thing. And that's where use cases are going to start to become interesting. Because I can totally imagine it building it into your HTTP server, for example. If you wanted to make a web-based control plane for ZFS, then you would build it into your notion of users or whatever there. Or if you're building it into a database as a database backend, you might have a concept of users there. But as I say, it's very context sensitive, I suppose.
So why not just make the API so that where the kernel virtual file systems fill out this operation is on behalf of this user ID or group ID, you do the same and expose it. Hey, here is, please fill out this struct with primary group, user ID, and ancillary groups
Yeah,
if you want to. And if you leave it null, it's just everything is running as root.
yeah, and maybe that's all it is. But no, my point is not that it's insoluble. It's just it's one of those things that like it is a design question, not just a shuffling
Yeah.
code around question. So
But I think this one is not a very hard one.
Do we have precedences from other systems to just rip off?
Stuff which got moved out of kernel and into user space.
no,
I guess you
it would
could argue
more
some of the GPU driver code.
it would more be cases where a system originated from a place that actually had a particular access model, like a sort of a security model moving into another environment that has something structurally quite different or undefined or whatever. I'm sure it's doable. Like I'm not. I don't even think it's hard. It could just be the API fix. And it was, but that was also an example. There are other bits and pieces that are not fleshed out because they don't exist. Like I'm basically just saying I haven't thought everything through. It's not just moving code around. That's all. I'm not
And
worried about any of it. But
there may be another interesting thing you could do rather than a full view server, have a kind of LD preload hack, which would hijack the system call symbols for open, get the ends, read write, and so on, to intercept the system calls and do them on the ZFS pool. So that you could run something like an ls, and then you would have your /cfs, and you control it via environment variables. This may enable retrofitting this into existing code more easily without additional round trips through the kernel in the form of views. But it
I
wouldn't
mean,
be a seamless abstraction.
I mean, maybe stuff ends up being pretty brittle, and yeah,
Yeah, it would definitely. That's why I said hacky.
yeah. I'll just
Rob,
do it with
is there?
Fuse.
Go
There's
ahead.
no issue with Fuse really, like, and particularly on Linux, Fuse is getting so much stuff that is just like eliminates a lot of the round trips around the kernel. They're adding a lot of stuff in there. So like you still end up going to Fuse. You go to Fuse, you go into the kernel, but you can then say, and then that will result in a request that goes down to this particular block device that doesn't always have to route back out to user space. So like there's all sorts of stuff possible there. So I'm not really worried about Fuse, but also I don't think Fuse is interesting, like I said. It is, however,
That's
the only credible sponsorship opportunity I have so far. I mean, I maybe details, but I'm in the middle of a conversation about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Fuse user space. That might be something." So, yeah,
We know what that is.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of it. That's kind of it. So,
How can we little people help such things,
um,
short of the tip jar?
well, I suppose I mean, like, actually talk about use cases. Like, I see it as an enabling tech. For me, it's like user space is CFS is interesting for me personally because it will make writing and debugging stuff a lot easier because I have access to user space debugging tools because debugging the kernel is a goddamn fucking nightmare. So that's kind of my personal motivation. But then beyond that, I'm like, if I can make ZFS look a lot more like just a regular program, then it's much more likely to be able to attract a sort of wider variety of programmers with wider variety of skills and experience and maybe move into places where it's not typically thought of
And
being used. So I don't. That's why I don't find Fuse particularly compelling. Well, I mean, it's fine. I'm
Oh,
not saying there's no use for it, but that's why
right.
I don't personally find it that
It
interesting. But use cases like why do you want this? Anyone who can hear this, literally, why is this interesting? Because those are the use
um,
cases that
Yeah,
I want to find out more about.
uh, so I think
Well,
the use case is using ZFS on external media.
Yep.
Is kind of the most portable operate file system next to FAT32,
yes,
Mhm.
sir.
um, which supports the nice things you want to have. And let's say someone runs some random Linux distro and the distribution kernel doesn't is too new and ZFS does not yet support it, or is too customized and nobody maintains a DKMS or whatever for it.
Yep.
Um, or you want to have something which, while not as performance as, but is easy to run as a on Mac OS or Windows with the equivalents to Fuse or Mac Fuse on the Mac even, so that you have a story you can give where, hey, you don't have to run a kind of under-tested kernel module to taint your kernel or whatever,
Yep.
and with your kernel stability, you can just install this Fuse server or Windows equivalent and have it work, even if it is only half performance. Doesn't matter, the CPU, as long as you're close to the USB spinning disk performance.
Right.
Um,
There's your bottleneck.
yeah,
the
or USB 5 gigabit connection to the SSD, it's fine, even if you use twice as many CPU cycles to do it.
yeah,
Stu,
I
oh,
wouldn't
Daniel, what you got?
underestimate
Yep.
I wouldn't
Um,
underestimate the barrier to entry. Linus Torvalds has a fatwa against the CDDL for some reason. Um, like, just the extra, even if it's not true that CFS isn't portable, like it is portable. Like, it's true. That there's no doubt that the Linux kernel is implementation is perfect. There's nothing really wrong with it. But
Mhm.
but there is this stupid thing where, you download the wrong distribution and, and then the DKMS version of ZFS becomes a lift. And, I think, I don't know. I think that bit of portability was what Chris was talking about at the OpenZFS summit. And that's definitely a thing. I think compartmentalizing for me, I think it's the compartmentalization of CFS into user space, and have a kernel implementation and a user space implementation, and then do something with backups related to that. So Matroska-doll of snapshots to to accept unsafe replication streams. That's interesting to me. That's something that I talked to Pavel about last year, and he insisted he was going to be doing what you did today, Rob. Um, but
so
yeah, I think there's lots of use cases, but I think the development one is that's pretty compelling that you get I have a developer on my team who's interested in getting involved, and he's building the test suite, and that's great, but if the barrier to entry was just that a tiny bit lower, that could be cool.
I
Yeah,
think
I
the other big
honestly, but
advantage, so
Yeah. Let's hear
the other
from a
big
few more
advantage it
people.
would
So once you wrap up, let's hear
get
from
us is
Stu.
that it would re- in, in time improve the code quality by making automated testing a lot cheaper and easier to run, so that we could afford running the tests more frequently, getting better test coverage, hopefully get more tests, which just now that it's easier than to write tests and have
Yeah,
a
that's an ongoing
finish.
conversation, fortunately, out of the summit. because we looked around the room and it's like, well, a bunch of us can script all day and night, whereas we cannot like write kernel modules in C. Thank you very much. So speaking of Stu, did you have a point to throw in there?
Yeah, so my approach with the fuse stuff and it's kind of how it, they're bifurcated, obviously, but think of it as a loop back device or a loop mount. All the features of ZFS as a loop, and it's something that Paul and I talked about a little bit offline during the summit, was the concept of a worm type mode for ZFS. Write once, read many.
Ah, yes.
So you can actually distribute code, you can distribute content, whatever, with Zelta, snapshots, all the fun magic. But in user mode, in user land, it would be a lighter hit because you don't need, again, it's DVDs worth of information or CDs worth of information, but I still want to be able to update it 400 times at once across 400 servers. Very similar to the any of the other container type things, but it can be at a lower level. You don't need all the extra overhead because it's just a bloody loop mount point. Refresh it, and you've got the fresh content. So that's a user space type of mechanism in my mind versus the full kernel set. Again, like Daniel said, it lowers the cost of entry. It do the things ZFS does really, 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 really well, with much lighter weight.
So what would that tool in your quiver look like in your workflow? And I'm having a flashback to an early part of the conversation about boot environments and all, where the installer might be a USB booted send stream, like I think Lumos is doing in various ways of your installation. You just slam it down from who knows where. But do you have a specific use case within your workflow for
There
that
are there are a
worm?
couple.
Like
Yeah, I
the
mean there are
worm
a
thing
couple that
specifically. Go ahead.
that worm image. Basically here's my master image and everything goes with it, and I don't have to do any other updates in flight. But it was more for relatively static content or protected code type of things that you can manage that way. But it's more of leveraging how do I update it quickly, and I don't need to send a terabyte of information when it's 20K worth of tweaks inside of a snapshot.
I'm a
Those
bit
type of
confused
optimizations.
because the way I understand your use case, you would in the end have to ZFS receive the incremental replication stream into the normal ZFS instance in your kernel. And
You have the
user
history.
space ZFS could only help
It all
you
depends on how you wrap
generate
it.
the streams.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you wrap it. It could be a ZFS send to a packager. That packager then gets it delivered to everything else, and then at midnight, everything gets updated at once with the remount. Those type of scenarios exist.
And don't get me wrong, we have like lovely, well, be it installation or update servers where, oh, we pull down the new, be it tarball of whatever. But yeah, if you're slamming down an official, I'll just use a FreeBSD example, an updated userland, which is just a tiny, tiny ZFS differential, well, just send it on into the right place and you're done in about as quickly as possible, which is nice.
So it's those type of things, and it's the repetitive, the hey, for compliance purposes, this book can't get released until midnight. It has to be everywhere at the same time, but it's not like Amazon's holding on to the package until they can deliver it at in the morning. So
Nice.
I mean, think of the what is it? The Where'd you go? Got it up here. Something like, of course, it went away. Sorry, brains fried.
We've stopped recording, so I don't mind talking about crap.
Did we stop recording?
I thought we did.
No, we're still deep.
Oh no,
deep
we're
in
still
it.
recording.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
we'll have to edit out this crap then.
Oh, perfect.
Crap, more work to do. If someone catches that bit of the recording like an hour, 90 minutes in, a full moose jaw in, that's great. It's actually a treat for them.
Okay, now I can talk crap. No,
No. You can mute. Okay, well, right off the bat, we have a lovely swath of user space OpenZFS use cases. And I think once you give people these tools, they will come up with clever things we had never thought of, which is a neat thing about open source and Unix and all the flexibility. Just let them hold it wrong and discover neat things. And that's a cool cathedral you have there, Rob. Kiwix. Tell
Wiki
us about Kiwix.
Wiki archives and stuff like for, keep maintaining an offline version. Right now, they generate that every month, and you have to pull down.
That's a very good point. Yes, you can get dumps of
I'm pulling my deltas out of it. Here you go. Now my update is 10 minutes versus 20
Absolutely. Especially to the whole, the classroom Raspberry Pi in the deserts of Africa for, the whole purpose of Wikipedia to serve the broadest audience, etc. Well, yeah, good point.
That's what I was leaning towards, and I finally found it. So
cool.
But be careful about trying to shoehorn your preferred tool onto other people like this. Like, just because you think ZFS is great and I think ZFS is great doesn't mean that they want to use it.
Agreed, but it was something like that.
If it saves a ton of bandwidth with differentials, then yay. But there are lots of
these tools exist.
rsync, yes,
that's what
rsync
was written for. If you want to incrementally update a tarball, use rsync. If you don't want the server to be required to do the rsync algorithm on demand, use ZSync to pre-compute the server-side rsync algorithm so that you have the list of rolling hashes pre-computed as a little file so that you can, on the client side, run actively the rsync algorithm.
But you're also, for the Kiwix stuff, you're getting compressed tar files with XML wrappers around them. You're not going to go into it and look for the deltas.
So with deltas, I meant the blocks where the changed blocks you identified with a rolling checksum. So with something like running parp hash or content-defined chunking.
And you say rsync will do essentially a binary diff of a tarball and give you just the true difference? Get you, Colin?
Close enough.
Close enough, okay.
All right, Daniel, throw your flag, buddy. The close enough in the financial world.
Yeah, there you go.
Flag on the flag.
Close enough. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, Joseph, is that you? Hey, Joseph V has rolled in. And is muted. And
hey, I just enjoy listening, to be honest. Not that much involved, just a regular user, but enjoy the discussions. And
Hey, no worries. And I wasn't sure if it's Joseph from the summit, but welcome. Where are you in from?
I'm from Switzerland. I didn't attend the
Yes,
summit, but watched it on YouTube, and that was very interesting as well.
that is great to hear. And I trust you're using ZFS in some way, or hoping to.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I work as Linux sysadmin in the small company, and we are using it everywhere we can, basically.
How did you find out about the call?
I was watching the summit, and I think you mentioned it in
Okay,
one of the yeah.
cool. Great. Well, that is great to hear. And, chime in when you have something. Do not be shy about asking questions. We won't
All
bite.
right, thank you, thank
We
you.
will make sarcastic t-shirt ideas out of it, but we won't bite. Anywho,
Thanks.
um, so yeah, I guess Rob, just hey, keep up the good work. If you are indeed nose to the grindstone on user space, OpenZFS, we'll stay out of your way and let us know how we can help.
No, I am not nose loose. I'm
Oh,
about I'm about 2 evenings a week
oh,
when I'm not too tired. But yes, I will continue to do so. I'm not stopping. I really, really, really want this. I think it's
that
so
is
important
fantastic.
for so many things.
Excellent, excellent. That's good to hear. Whew. Um, Anything else at this time? We are a solid moose jaw into this, depending on which hour you've started at. Um, I think it's been a great discussion, and we all have our homework. I will keep at it with the test suite and things as simple as adding a -i and a directory path instead of an actual header name got me to a different error. So I consider that progress. Um, At least three of you should get me addresses for shirts, and thank you, Rob, for what you've just sent. The ladies' shirts are a slightly different color, but well, sorry, that's what the vendor can do. But they're also a really lovely color. I could bring those in if need be. The coasters have been a hit, and they are very lightweight, easy to travel, very durable, and you can send them across the room if needed. So enjoy. There are coasters out there. Uh, I suppose I'll do my best to load you up, Rob, so that you can spread that love down under.
I feel pretty special. Thank you. I do like a box of stuff.
Stuff is fun, and I did do a new batch of stickers, so I was running low on those. So I'll sticker you up. And same with I'm thinking Berlin here. If anyone else is in an area where there's a user group, etc., or community that needs some lightweight swag, I'm game. What else? What else? Anywho,
There's one other thing, Michael.
yes.
There was a request for recipes. Where did those want to get posted?
That is a very good question. I'm guessing the wiki would be a horrible place for it. Um,
But
Goodness.
I've got three
Wiki
MD
it is.
files.
Sounds perfect.
Yes. Do you have a personal
Wiki
blog or
works
anything?
fine.
No, I don't.
And don't forget to open up with like 2 paragraphs worth of sub story for emotional engagement. Like
Yeah, no,
online
I don't.
recipes are apparently required to.
Have you
Because
just met
starting
me?
with the food picture and then the ingredient list is apparently too hard on some minds.
Okay. I will not make a single snarky comment. Where do people think recipes should show up?
In my refrigerator.
In your belly? That's a bit intrusive.
My belly.
You're supposed to eat the food, not the recipe, because then you can't cook it again if you eat the recipe.
Fair enough.
Unless you're a cannibal.
Great fiber.
Is Kiwix a
Mhm.
proper place, or Wiki. Is there? There must be a recipe equivalent for
Create a
Wikipedia,
category in
huh?
the
Something.
wiki.
Goodness.
Make a category recipes in Clamian edible.
Ah. Um, does someone want to casually ask Matt about that idea? Because I'm not against it, and it'll be higher quality content than some of the content on the wiki, so I suppose no one will truly complain, but there's that adventure. But
I
good
think as
point.
long as you're not abusing the domain for SEO purposes, there's no conflict here, right? Ignore idiots who want wikis to be exclusive.
Well, Stu, do you have wiki access, or do you want to mail me something and I'll tactfully find a place?
They're on the way to you.
Cool, thank you.
Then
And con
that'll get Daniel off my back.
oh, phew, okay, good. And totally unrelated from the FreeBSD Summit the other day, NetApp has expiring badges, and I suppose someone pointed out that while I do the share, no one will see this. So it is kind of cool that the badge starts out black and white in the morning and ends void by evening. And of course, we were curious if you had laminated or keep in the dark or something else, but kind of cool. Well then, um, recipes received. That said, other topics, questions, ideas, funny jokes, uh, venues for something like the summit because venues are the hardest part. I have no problem against a road show and people are actually being proactive about wanting to sponsor things, and I appreciate that person's pulling teeth.
As long as it's a proper caliber.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got it in. I got caliber in today.
Nice. We have a new Easter egg to slip in. We can discuss that after the recording is finished. I've got it at 2237 38 UTC. How about who would like the honors?
Like and subscribe, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Take care, everyone.